Hi guys. So today I'm going to talk about Enchanted as well as Disenchanted. And within this, there are definitely going to be spoilers for both of these films. So if you have not seen either one, um, you know, this is your warning. But I will also indicate, like, when it comes to especially the Disenchanted portion, if you haven't gotten to that part, um, if you haven't gotten to that movie, I guess I should say, I'll let you know too, like, hey, spoilers are coming up for this. So I feel like it's just to be said when it comes to any sequel, just in general. Some people I think are gonna love it, some are gonna hate it. It's gonna vary depending on who I think you are, and I would say the love of the film that that it is. Because, let's face it, a lot of Disney properties have sequels. Some are not good, some are fine, and some are very good. But, that I think opinion varies depending on who you ask. Now, for the Enchanted movies, I think for years people have been saying, like, oh, we should do an Enchanted sequel. I think it's been hinted at for years. Um, Enchanted came out in 2007. And I remember when this movie came out and I got the DVD for it, I watched this movie like, God, on repeat. There was something about it I loved. And, I think, and this is my opinion, I think I liked it because of the fact that you have a movie that starts in 2D animation and now we're going to live action. But not only that, you have this idea of almost a princess, a young maiden, if you will, where the idea is very Disney-like of, hey, I'm in the woods, or like, I've got these like fairy tale creatures. I'm in this fairy tale land. My goal is now find my true love, have true love's kiss, live happily ever after. And essentially that happens. Like, essentially, Prince Edward comes, James Marsden comes in and he saves Giselle, Amy Adams. And they're like, "Oh my god, you are the prince like that I've dreamed about." And they're then destined to be wed. They're like, "Yep, we're going to be married like ASAP." What then happens is the queen, if I remember correctly, it's Prince Edward's stepmother, Queen Nerissa. She's like, she ain't having it. She's like, nah, I ain't giving up my throne. No. So she like tricks Giselle. She's like an old hag, thinks Snow White. Like, I think that's another thing a lot of people like about this movie too, is there's a lot of nods like other Disney properties, other Disney movies. And so you got like Snow White vibes, pushes her down a well, and then it's, I'm sending you up to a place where there are no happy endings. And that place is New York City, the real world, just in general. And, now Giselle essentially has to navigate and figure out, where the heck am I? What is going on? But also, it's not like she changes her mindset right away. It's, hey, Prince Edward is going to come and get me. I need to just find a place to be so then he can find me and we can go home. Well, then she runs into Patrick Dempsey's character, Robert. Robert has a young daughter, Morgan. Robert is also dating a woman, Adita Menzel. Her character's name is Nancy. And, Nancy and Robert are just dating, not engaged yet. They're probably planning on it. Morgan is still at that age where it's like very much into fairy tales, very much into, like the storybook setting. While Robert, I think, really wants her to, I wouldn't say get into, but kind of grow out of that phase. Like, he wants her to look up to these women because he tries to give her a book, like, on real women who are, I would say, inspiring, strong, independent women. And, it's, Robert's even not in that mindset of like, oh, I want my, not necessarily like, I don't want my daughter to have this. I think it's just like, oh, I want the real world to kind of set in for her. Like, at some point it's going to happen. How quickly do you kind of make it happen, Like, how quickly do you make them grow up? So, they meet Giselle. Robert and Giselle, I think, both learn from one another. Because as we see, like, through different events, Robert starts to grow on Giselle. Giselle starts to grow on Robert. And we see them both change in different ways, Like, at some point in the film, like, Prince Edward finds Giselle. Prince Edward wants to engage in song with Giselle. Giselle's like not having it, or like doesn't understand the cues like maybe she used to. And, like, oh, let's go on a date. Like, she's learning all these like real world things. And Prince Edward hasn't learned that because his quest has been finding Giselle. Well, Giselle has been learning these things and has wanted to learn these things. Long story short, like, they end up going to a ball. Robert goes with Nancy, Edward goes with Giselle, and, Nerissa does her thing. It's a big thing, turns into a dragon, and, essentially she's defeated, and Giselle ends up with Robert, Nancy ends up with Edward. Now, getting into Disenchanted. If you have not seen Disenchanted, this is your time for, like, spoilers ahead. Now, Disenchanted. Here's the first thing I realized, because I did watch Enchanted again after watching Disenchanted twice. Because first I watched Disenchanted just like through my mind, like just first watching it. Second time I'm like, okay, what I miss? Like, let's rewatch it. Then I wanted to rewatch Enchanted to see, okay, like, what feels different? Because it's been a minute, honestly, since I've watched Enchanted. So, first thing I realized, they do give you a recap, like real short, like a minute or two, like, hey, here's what you missed. Here is what you missed on Enchanted. Then they also have to give you like a little like blurb in regards to Giselle. Like, I guess she had no parents and she was raised by woodland creatures. Think Jungle Book, but it's woodland creatures, forest creatures instead of Jungle Book, instead of Bagheera and Baloo. Well, not really Baloo, the wolves. I'm messing everything up. So, I was like, okay. And like that, I kind of get, but at the same time, I was like, I don't care, I guess. Like, why was that not explained, I guess, more in the first film? If that was important. And if you remember in Enchanted, there's a clothing store that Giselle opens up. I don't know. At least I think it's insinuated. I think that's hers from like the title and everything. I don't know if like she just decided I don't want to do that anymore, but that's not mentioned at all in this film. Um, and there's definitely a lot of. It's interesting to see how, in Enchanted, you can see where Giselle kind of grows and adapts to the real world. You can still kind of sense that here, but at the same time, like the things that maybe you sensed were different in Enchanted, they still seem like it reverted back in a way. Like there are just some things that I don't know, like she still breaks out into song a lot. And, I just from rewatching Enchanted, I'm like, okay, that happens. However, like, when Edward wanted to do that, it was like, oh, I don't understand. Or, like, just certain things, like, seemed like she was kind of adapting to it. And I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just looking into that a bit differently. But aside from that, I liked the idea of even though she has been in this world for, years now, she herself has maybe changed, but essentially she still has her, I would say, true spirit about her because I don't like where, you have a character and let's say they come from somewhere else or like do things very differently and then next season or the sequel, they are doing exactly what everybody else does. I don't like that. And I liked how she still kind of like stayed to herself because I don't think her actions and what she does is harmful in any way, shape, or form. If it was harmful to somebody, then yeah, that's something that would obviously need to change. But like, if it's a tradition or like, something that I would say is close to you and that you want to do, stick with it. Don't just change because everyone else doesn't understand. And I really enjoyed seeing, and I feel like this was the general consensus of this film. Once Robert, Giselle, Morgan, and Sophia moved to this home in this, on the outskirts of New York City in the suburb, Edward and Nancy come and visit. The consensus for everyone, I think, is please give them their own like movie or show. Please. From the first film, and even seeing him, just in general, Prince Edward, in this film, I need more. And then seeing their dynamic, Nancy and Edward, I then need more. I can't just have like a little bit. Give me more. They were the stars every time they were on screen. So, and, they're going to be. You've got Idina Menzel and you have James Marsden. So, but if there is a way, make it happen. That I think that would bring joy to a lot of people, one of which being me. Um, but like they come to visit because Sophia is their goddaughter, and they have a gift of a wand. Essentially, the wand can be used by a child of Andalasia. So that being Sophia, because Giselle is from Andalasia, Giselle and Robert made Sophia, boom, child of Andalasia. Morgan, though, is like, you can tell she's like, will I belong not just from that scene, but like other like things that have been said and done. And she really just does not like it here. She doesn't like the fact that she had to move. She doesn't like this new setting. She didn't know anybody here. And I get that. Like I've moved a bunch. I think just being a teenager in general, I wouldn't say sucks, but for some it's easy, for others it's hard. And in this case, this girl's just been through it, went through the moving process, and she just needs a break. And it doesn't make it easy when you have a stepmother that just like sings and embarrasses you, and you're just like, yep, I want to crawl in a hole now and just like die. But you know, you have Maya Rudolph's character who is kind of the creator of this town. Um, and her son also goes to the school where Morgan goes to school. A lot of events occur, and essentially it's like Morgan, I wouldn't say uses the term a lot, but finally she's not like addressing Giselle. She's like, she's not my mother, she is my stepmother. Well, that hurts Giselle. Giselle like knows of that term, and in her world, a fairy tale world, that's not good. Like a stepmother is not a good thing. In most books that we see and like most stories, the stepmother is normally evil. And so she then decides, okay, I'm going to make a wish with this wand that'll fix everything if I make it like my fairy tale world, like Andalasia. Well, makes town like Andalasia. Now you have a situation where Maya Rudolph is a villain because, controller of the town, kind of like a queen. But then what's interesting enough, and I kind of liked this, is Giselle is also a villain. And I did not see that kind of coming because, I think with Morgan throwing the term stepmother out there, that's what did it. I knew Maya Rudolph was probably gonna be one. You could tell from like the clothes and everything, but wasn't sure on like Giselle. But it confirms it pretty quickly on plot points and everything because there's like a chime. The chime of the clock tower essentially like I think almost Cinderella. Like once it strikes midnight, the spell is going to be complete. In this case, as each hour kind of passes, the spell goes stronger. And so her, I'd say evilness, villainous side comes out and like stays just like a tad longer. Um, and again, we still get nods and callbacks to other Disney properties within this film, which I enjoyed. The two hits within this whole movie are Batter, which is basically a face-off between Giselle and Maya Rudolph, like who is the meaner villain. And then Love Power, where Giselle finally, I guess, just has enough of Morgan and she's like, bye, and like pushes her down. Call back to Enchanted, pushes her down the well, and, she ends up in Andalasia. And Nancy and Edward find her, and they explain, like, yeah, your mom's wish took the magic from Andalasia, so it's killing this place, and it's taking it to your world. And so we gotta, like, fix that. But the star song within there is Love Power. And they've gotta bank on that. Because Idina Menzel sings that. And, that's going to be an instant hit. Got to put that in the catalog. So, that's another one where it's like, yep, this is going to end well. And so essentially, as things transpire, Morgan ends up back in the real world in the town that Giselle created to try and stop everything. You think almost, it's getting to that point. It's gonna strike midnight. The wand's broken. Giselle is slowly dying. Andelasia's slowly dying. And, you know, Morgan and Giselle have like a heart to heart, and Giselle's like, no, you are my daughter. You are a daughter of Andalasia, because you are my daughter. And that's where Morgan's then able to use the wand. Love the poetry there. However, I'm like, but she's not a daughter of Andalasia, though. Like, I thought you had to be born in Andalasia or of Andalasian blood, but whatever, poetry, I guess. And then essentially, like, all is good, all is well, like, I stand. Um, Again, like, is this. I watched it twice. I enjoyed it for, like, bits and pieces. I like the fairy tale portion because I love the musical aspect. I liked that there was more songs, but I also need the songs to be meaningful and to carry story along. So like some songs I didn't care for. Like frankly, the songs I liked the most, mind you, some I do not remember like name-wise. Um Love, the one where they're presenting the wand, Prince Edward and Nancy. Um, Love, the one where like they wake up and essentially it's like, you know, Giselle goes, dances in town. Love Batter, Love Power. And then I love the ending song, like it's a reprise. So, I mean, aside from that though, like, it wasn't like some songs really weren't necessary. And I I see the theme and I see the message within like these movies. Like it's almost a connecting theme. It's the idea of change and growth and are things going to be the same? No. It's the idea of like love and family and how that's like I wouldn't say ever changing, but in the first film, the theme I think is, of course, finding true love. How do you go about finding true love? As well as change, because Giselle changes with her respective partner, as well as Robert changes with his respective partner, both of which being Giselle and Robert. In this film, it's more so, I would say, change in regards to how does the family dynamic change, because I've heard situations and seen situations where like friends, they've, maybe gotten a new step parent or maybe a family dynamic changes because families separate, something occurs. And so it's okay, how do I address you? Are things going to be different now? I think it's still that idea of family and, you know, how do we how do we grow and go through this dynamic together? Both films I think are fine. If I had to choose one that, I think carries more weight, of course I think it's going to be Enchanted. But there's something about Disenchanted I just love. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the fact that like the star key players for me in Disenchanted are Maya Rudolph, Amy Adams, Giselle, um, Prince Edward, and Nancy. Like period. Like Morgan was fine, Patrick Dempsey didn't really do much for me, but those were the main players for me. Period. While in the first film, I think your main players are, you know, Patrick Dempsey, Amy Adams, Giselle, Patrick Dempsey, Robert, I guess I should say, Prince Edward, James Marston, Adina Menzel, Nancy. Like the couples, the individuals who all somehow like end up together. I think those are like the main key players for me, and that changed in this film for the sequel. So I think they worked with what they had. There are definitely some breakout songs in here, and love them. Uh, will I watch it again? I think I will. I just don't know if I'll like fast forward through parts now that I've like watched it twice through, like sometimes I do with films. But we'll see. But that is Enchanted and Disenchanted. If you have watched both or watched one or the other, feel free to leave your thoughts down below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.